Hello, and welcome to the Bhagavatam. All right, I have a question for you. Does God take birth? Hear me carefully. Does God take birth? Does God die? Is God mortal? What about these different avatars that I've been talking about over the past episodes? Are they not born and do they not die? Some tough questions here. The answer is simultaneously yes and no. No, because God is never born and never dies. Just as the setting sun does not die and the rising sun is not born. The sun disappears from our sight and then reappears in the morning, in much the same way God appears and disappears from this world. In the Gita, chapter 2, text number 12, Krishna says, "Never was there a time when I did not exist, nor you." So hear that very carefully. Never was there a time when I did not exist, Krishna is saying, nor you, nor all these kings, nor in the future shall any of us cease to be. Which means that not only is God never born and never dies, but because we are made of the same spiritual essence as God, we too never die and are therefore never born. I know you have a birthday, I do too, but that birthday is the time when our body took birth. And it's then that the soul entered into it. But the soul, which is the real self, which is the real being, which is the real who you are, was never born and never died. It simply entered into that body. It put it on just as we put on a set of clothes. It sat into it just as we sit inside a car. And then when that body is no longer functional, the soul leaves it. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says on chapter 2, text number 20, "For the soul there is never birth nor death." For the soul, that is for you and me, there is never birth nor death. We are immortal beings. Nor having once been does he ever cease to be. He is unborn, eternal, ever existing, undying, and primeval. Meaning he's been there since the beginning of time. The soul is not slain when the body is slain. As a person puts on new garments, giving up old ones, similarly the soul accepts new material bodies, giving up the old and useless ones. Right? Just like we give up an old pair of clothes and put on some new ones. The same way the soul gives up an old and useless body, one that cannot be used anymore. And it moves on. In much the same way God appears again and again in this world. In the Gita he says in chapter 4, text number 6, "Although I am unborn and my transcendental body never deteriorates." Key word here, transcendental body, never deteriorates. We'll talk about that in a moment. "And although I am the Lord of all sentient beings, I still appear in every millennium in my original transcendental form." Whenever and wherever there is a decline in dharma and a predominant rise of adharma, at that time I descend. I've explained in the past episodes what is dharma, what is adharma. And just for a moment, just to let you know, some people might say it's religious practice, but really it's about the awareness of who we are and who we come from, or God. When that declines, and I don't mean religion, there's lots of religion in this world. Lots of it. Billions of people who believe in something or other, but they're still not following the path of dharma. The path of dharma is where we see each other as divine beings. When we say namaste, we recognize the divinity in each person, in every person. Doesn't matter what their religion is. When we pray for the well-being of all beings, and not just for the beings who are of our religion. No, we pray for the well-being, the salvation, the health, the happiness of all beings. Sarva Sukhina. We talk about the happiness of all beings. I won't go into more detail here. So when Krishna is saying his original transcendental form, that means that he appears in a form that is non-material, that is not affected by the modes of nature, by birth, by death, by old age and disease. A form, a body that is not subject to being controlled by the mind, is not subject to karma of the past or the present. A form that is Sat Chit Ananda, or eternal, full of knowledge and bliss. A spiritual form that he makes available to our limited senses to perceive. Now, that's the same as saying, if my soul could now be visible to everybody. My soul is a spiritual form. It's a spiritual being. If that could now reveal itself in a form that everyone could see, that would be the equivalent of what Krishna is saying here. He does not come in a physical body. He comes in a non-physical body that is eternal, full of knowledge and bliss. You might say that's not possible. And you'd be right. You've never met anyone like that. And if that being who is making this claim is God, who is all-powerful, all-knowing, omnipotent by definition, could he not do whatever he wants? Can we limit God by defining what he can and cannot do? I think that would be a little too much, right? All right, let's say that God can manifest himself to us, then what would he look like? What would he do? And, well, that's what we're going to find out in the Bhagavatam. Come join me in this grand adventure as we discover the nature of the Supreme Being, Krishna. Every year, on Krishna's birthday, it's called Janam Ashtami. That birthday is celebrated in thousands of temples across the world. Devotees fast all day till midnight, and at the stroke of 12 midnight, they dance, they sing, they pray, they feast, and shower flower petals on each other to celebrate this divine moment, God's birthday. Not the birthday of a prophet, a messenger, or son of God, but the day God personally incarnated to show us who he is and to invite us to come back home with him, a day like no other. But it didn't start with all this celebration. His parents were in jail. The king who had jailed them had been told that their 8th son would kill him. The king had already killed 6 of their children, and one of them had apparently miscarried, though that's not actually what happened. That's what it appeared like. Now it was time for the 8th child of Vasudeva and Devaki, his name is Krishna, to be born. But before we go to that, I'd like to just show you a little bit of what it looks like when this festival takes place of Janamashtami. So here we are. This is the birthplace of Krishna. There's now a temple there. Unfortunately, much of the original temple was destroyed and a mosque was built there, the place where Krishna was actually born. Yeah, that's been destroyed and the mosque was built there, which is now behind it, depending, of course, on where you're looking at it from. And this is what's on the inside. Krishna, along with his beloved. All right, so coming back to our story. And story is history, itihasya. This is from the Bhagavad Purana. The Puranas are histories, itihasya. That means thus it happened. So these were recorded by great sages who then wanted this to be handed down over time. They recorded them in Sanskrit, in perfect language, that it would not be distorted at any time. At the auspicious time for Krishna's appearance, now this is around 5,000 years ago. At that time, that is around 3000 BC. There's an exact date that's been taken out. I don't have it here with me right now, but At that auspicious time for Krishna's appearance, the entire universe was surcharged with all the qualities of goodness, beauty, and peace. The constellation Rohini appeared, as did stars like Ashwini. The sun, the moon, and other stars and planets were very peaceful. All directions appeared pleasing, and beautiful stars twinkled in the cloudless sky. Decorated with towns, villages, mines, and pasturing grounds, the earth seemed all auspicious. The rivers flowed with clear water, and the lakes filled with lilies and lotuses were extraordinarily beautiful. The trees and green plants were full of flowers and leaves, pleasing to the eyes. Birds like cuckoos and swarms of bees began chanting with sweet voices. A pure breeze began to blow, bearing the aroma of flowers. And Brahmins engaged in ritualistic ceremonies ignited their fires. The fires burned steadily, undisturbed by the breeze. Thus, when the birthless Sri Vishnu is the name we're going to talk about. This is the original of Krishna. Krishna is known, among the Das avatar, he is known to be the incarnation of Vishnu, though originally, actually, Krishna is the source of Vishnu. However, Vishnu is what we're going to come across here. Vishnu, the supreme personality of Godhead, was about to appear. At that time, the saints, the priests, the Brahmins who had been disturbed by demons like Kans and his men, they began to feel peace within the core of their hearts. In the heavenly kingdoms, the devas, the demigods, began to offer auspicious prayers and sing auspicious songs and dance in celebration. They showered flowers and were in a joyous mood. They knew what was coming. Meanwhile, the clouds gathered in the sky and very mildly thundered, making sounds like those of the ocean waves. When the Supreme Godhead Vishnu, who is situated in the core of everyone's heart, yes, he's situated in everyone's heart, everyone, between the saint and the sinner, the atheist and the believer, doesn't matter. He's situated in the core of everyone's heart. He appeared from the heart of Devaki in the dense darkness of night. So he literally just appeared from the heart of Devaki in the dense darkness of night. He appeared like the full moon rising on the eastern horizon because Devaki herself was an expansion of Krishna. So Srila Prabhupada explains in the Bhagavatam, he says Krishna's entire entourage, his father, his mother, his friends, the cows of Vrindavan, they were all transcendental beings having spiritual forms. Sat Chit Ananda Vigraha. And that's very astounding. I learned that too, that all of them were transcendental beings. In the Gita, Krishna says, Janma Karma Chame Divyam. So his Janma, his birth, and his Karma and his actions are all Divyam. Divyam means divine. Evam yo veti tattvataha. One who knows this tattva, this truth. Tyaktva deham punarjanma. Such a person will never take birth again. Naiti mameti. So Arjuna, that person will come back to me. He also says in the Gita, Ajo pisan avyayai, that I am unborn and my body, my form never deteriorates. So, although I am unborn and my transcendental body never deteriorates, and although I am the Lord of all sentient beings, I still appear in every millennium in my original transcendental form. Now this newborn child was unlike any other child that you might have thought of. He had wonderful lotus-like eyes, like lotus petals. And he had 4 hands in which he carried a conch shell, a club, a disc, and lotus flower. He was dressed in yellow. His body was blackish like a dense cloud. His scattered hair was fully grown, and his helmet and earrings sparkled with valuable Vaidurya gems. He was decorated with brilliant belt, armlets, bangles, and other ornaments, and appeared very wonderful. When Vasudeva saw his extraordinary son, his eyes were struck with wonder. Let's take a look at that image. So that's Vasudeva and Devaki. And they are looking at Vishnu as he has appeared before them. In the actual instance, the little baby that you see at the bottom is still not there. He will change into that later on. But first he comes just as the four-handed Vishnu. There's another image right there. And another one. And there's a picture of Vishnu. So when Vasudeva saw his extraordinary son, his eyes were struck with wonder. At this point, Vasudeva very humbly wondered that although he himself was an ordinary living entity conditioned by material nature and was imprisoned, he was in prison, imprisoned by the great king Kans. Yet Vishnu had appeared as a child in this prison for him. No earthly child is born with 4 hands, decorated with ornaments and nice clothing, with all the signs of the Supreme Godhead. Over and over again, Vasudeva glanced at his child and he considered how to celebrate this auspicious moment. Generally, when a child is born, people observe the occasion with jubilant celebrations. Like how you have a birthday for a newborn baby. But what do you do if you're in jail? The Supreme Being Vishnu, he thought, has taken birth in my home. Whatever home that was is jail. How many millions and millions of times should I be prepared to observe this auspicious ceremony? But all he could do was mentally. So mentally he began to distribute thousands of cows to the Brahmins, the priests, and to have a great transcendental festival. He could understand without doubt that this child was the Supreme Being, Vishnu or Narayan or Hari, so many names he has. And thus Vasudeva, the father, became fearless. He bowed down with folded hands and began to offer prayers to the child who illuminated the prison with his natural effulgence. Vasudeva said, I can understand who you are. You are the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Paramatma, super soul of all living entities. You are in everyone's heart. You are the absolute truth, and you have appeared in your own eternal form, which is directly perceived by us. I understand that because I am afraid of the king Kans, you have appeared just to deliver me from that fear. You do not belong to this material world. You are the same person who brings about the cosmic manifestation simply by glancing over material nature. Although you have appeared as a child in the womb of Devaki, you always exist in your abode, but simultaneously expand yourself into millions of forms. This is great wisdom here. You always exist in your abode. So although he comes into this world, he also at the same time simultaneously exists in his own abode. And no, that's not in the clouds. No. Why should he live in the clouds? Gosh, that's ridiculous. No, he has a beautiful abode called Vaikuntha. And beyond that, Goloka. But we'll come to all that as we go along. Oh my Lord, proprietor of all creation, you have now appeared in my house, desiring to protect this world. I am sure that you will kill all the armies that are moving all over the world under the leadership of politicians who are dressed as warriors and rulers, but are factually asuras or demons. They must be killed by you for the protection of the innocent public. By hearing the prophecy that you would take birth in our home and kill the uncivilized King Kans, who has killed so many of your elder brothers. We were so delighted to hear that. As soon as Kans hears from his lieutenants that you have appeared, he will immediately come with weapons to kill you. And now at the moment the father Vasudeva said that, the mother Devaki, she brought up her fears. Devaki was very much afraid of Kans and unusually astonished to see her child, so she didn't know what to do. She just began to offer prayers. Devaki said, you are the origin of the entire cosmic manifestation. You are Brahman, the greatest of everything, full of effulgence like the sun. You have no material cause. You are free from change and deviation. You have no material desires. So now she's espousing all this different knowledge and gyan and philosophy. By understanding you, one gradually understands everything. Has anyone been nervous? We sometimes resort to things like that, right? We're scared, we're nervous, we're anxious, we're fearful. And then we just start saying stuff. So here she was bringing up this incredible wisdom. By understanding you, one gradually understands everything. Everything emanates from you. You are the cause of all causes, the light of all transcendental knowledge. After millions of years of the time of cosmic annihilation, when everything manifest and unmanifest is annihilated by the forces of time, at that time you alone remain. Let me offer my obeisances and fully surrender unto you. No one in this material world has become free from birth, death, old age, and disease, even by fleeing to various planets. But now that you have appeared, death is fleeing in fear of you. You dispel all the fear of your devotees. I request you to save us and give us protection from the terrible King Kants. Because of your appearance, I am becoming more and more anxious, in fear of Kants. Now, this is a contradiction, right? On one hand, she recognizes that he is beyond time. Nothing can kill him. When the entire world is destroyed, he still remains. And yet, because he's appeared to her as her child, she's fearful and anxious for her baby. This baby looks like a grown person with crown and jewels and all kinds of things. So, quite a contradiction there. She says, your transcendental four-armed form is unnatural for this world. Please become just like a human child so that I may try to hide you somewhere. So she wants to protect him. Her motherly instinct is coming in. She's wanting to protect her baby. This transcendental form has taken birth from my womb. People will not be able to believe this, and I shall become the object of ridicule. She's even concerned about that. The Supreme Godhead, Vishnu, at that time replied, my dear mother, so he now gives her the backstory. In your previous birth, in the Swayambhuva millennium, you were known as Prishni. And Vasudev, my father at this life, was the most pious person named, or my pious Prajapati, who was named Suttapa. When both of you were ordered by Brahma to create progeny, you underwent severe austerities by controlling your senses. You know, in the ancient times, people, when they were going to have a baby, they didn't just go out and have sex. No, they didn't have drunken sex. They didn't go out and try to, just randomly go for it. No, they purified their mind. They controlled their senses. They created within themselves a space to draw into this world a highly evolved being who would then be a blessing to this world and who would be there to uplift humanity. That was their intention. So these two, who are now the father and mother of baby Krishna, were in their previous lifetime, which was a millennium ago, in the time of Swayambhuva Manu, they were known as Prishni and Suttapa. And they had been ordered by Brahma, so they began to do all kinds of austerities. He says, my dear father and mother, you endured rain, wind, storm, strong sun, scorching heat, and severe cold, suffering all kinds of inconvenience according to the different seasons. That means they lived in the forest. They didn't live in some hut. They didn't live in a house. They didn't live in a palace. It wasn't air-conditioned. They endured all the ravages of the seasons. By practicing pranayam is the breath when you control the air within the body through yoga, and by eating only air and dry leaves fallen from the trees, you cleanse from your mind all dirty things. Anartha nivriti, this is called. You remove all the anarthas, all the impurities from within you. In this way, desiring a benediction from me, you worship me with peaceful minds. After 12,000 celestial years, in which you constantly contemplated me within the core of your heart with great faith, devotion, and austerity, I was very much satisfied with you. Since I am the best of all bestowers of benediction, I appeared in the same form as Krishna to ask you to take from me the benediction you desired. You then expressed your desire to have a son exactly like me. Now, there is no one exactly like Krishna. There is no one who is exactly like the Supreme Being, except if he expands himself. He says, you had no desire to be liberated from this material world. You didn't want anything for yourself. It was not even liberation that you wanted, not even freedom from suffering. No, you just wanted me. And when you want God more than anything else in the world, more than your own happiness, more than your own comfort, more than your own pleasure, more than your own life, more than your own liberation, then he comes to you. So he says, then you desire to have a son exactly like me. And after you received that benediction and I disappeared, after you received that benediction, I disappeared. And then you both engaged yourselves in sex to have a son like me, and I fulfilled your desire. Since I found no one else as highly elevated as you in simplicity and other qualities of good character, I appeared in this world as Prishni Garbha, or one who is celebrated by having taken birth from his mother, Prishni. In the next millennium, you became my mother as Aditi and my father as Kashyap. You might remember we actually heard about Aditi and Kashyap way back in the 3rd canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. And at that time I appeared as Vamana. Remember the dwarf incarnation of Vishnu? That was him. And these were the same parents. I have now appeared of you both as your son, and for the 3rd time, take my words as the truth. I have shown you this form of Vishnu just to remind you of my previous births. Otherwise, if I appeared like an ordinary human child, you would not believe that the Supreme Godhead, Vishnu, has indeed appeared. Both of you constantly think of me as your son and always know that I am the Supreme Godhead. By thus thinking of me constantly with love and affection, you will achieve the highest perfection, returning home, back to Godhead. That is, back to be with him, to be with Vishnu, to be in his divine abode in Vaikuntha. After thus instructing his father and mother, he then transformed himself into a small human child. At that time, Yogamaya, Vishnu's spiritual energy, this is not the material energy, his spiritual energy, took birth as the daughter of the wife of King Nanda. This was in another town altogether called Gokul. So these Vasudeva and Devaki were in the jail in Mathura. Now in another town called Gokul, the wife of King Nanda, her name is Yashoda, had a baby girl. And this baby girl was Yogamaya, who we will come to know now as Durga. I'm coming to it. By the influence of Yogamaya, all the doorkeepers of the jail and the inhabitants of the house fell deeply asleep. When the sun rises, so now they're in this jail, right? And everyone's gone to sleep, very deep sleep. When the sun rises, the darkness automatically disappears. Similarly, when Vasudeva appeared in front of the door, the closed doors, which are normally strongly pinned with iron and locked with chains, opened automatically. Since the clouds in the sky were mildly thundering and showering, Anantanag, an expansion of the Supreme Godhead, which appears like a snake with many heads, followed Vasudeva with hoods expanded to protect Vasudeva and the transcendental child. So he created like an umbrella-like effect. I think I have a picture that I can show you. You'll see here that Vasudeva is carrying baby Krishna. The guards have gone to sleep, and Shesha appears behind Vasudeva. Vasudeva doesn't realize this is happening, but appears to protect Vasudeva, the father, and Krishna from any of the rain that is falling. It's real thoughtful, right? And then Vasudeva now goes to the river Yamuna to cross it. This is going to be a very scary moment. So there is again Shesha, there's Krishna and Vasudeva. And we have one more. of them crossing. Because of constant rain, the river Yamuna was filled with deep water, foaming about with fiercely whirling waves, just as the great Indian Ocean had formerly given way to Sri Ram by allowing him to construct the bridge. The river Yamuna gave way to Vasudeva and allowed him to cross. In many ways, the river literally just kind of gave way. But first there's a trick. There's a little bit of the story that I didn't come across in the Bhagavatam, but I've heard from others. When Vasudeva was carrying Krishna, he had put him in a basket, and he put that basket on top of his head because the water was rising so high. So he put the basket on top of his head. And the river kept rising and rising. And Krishna knew that his father was going to get drowned. And he knew why the river was rising. Yamuna Devi wanted to see him. So the goddess who was in charge of the Yamuna river, she wanted to have darshan of Krishna. So Krishna put his foot down from the basket and touched the waters of Yamuna. And then the waters receded. And then Vasudeva was able to cross over. Now when Vasudeva, the father of Krishna, reached the house of Nanda, this was, again, I told you, in Gokul, in a different place altogether, he saw that all the cowherd men were fast asleep. So they were a dairy community, and they were all asleep. Then he placed his son on the bed of Yashoda, so this is the wife of Nanda, and picked up her daughter, who was an expansion of Yogamaya, and returned to the prison house of Kans. He didn't try to run away because his wife was there, right? Remember? Exhausted by the labor of childbirth. Well, maybe I should show you a picture here before we go further. That's Vasudeva, and he's bringing baby Krishna. Let's give you another one here. So he's placing baby Krishna there, and he's taking away the little girl, Yogamaya. Exhausted by the labor of childbirth, Yashoda was overwhelmed with sleep and unable to understand what kind of child had been born to her. So the lady, Yashoda, who had had the baby girl, didn't quite know that she'd had a girl. Right? She didn't quite realize. She just fell asleep. Vasudeva then placed the female child on the bed of Devaki, bound his legs, and then came back. Right? He placed the female. He came back and he put the iron shackles back on his legs, and then the gates of the prison shut, and he was locked again. Now, the doors inside and outside the house of the prison, rather, closed as before. The inhabitants of the house, especially the watchmen, the guards, heard the crying of the newborn baby girl and awakened from their beds. Then quickly they approached King Kans and submitted the news of the birth of Devaki's 8th child. Now, if you remember, if you've been following this, Kans had been told by a prediction that the 8th child of Devaki was going to kill him. So he'd been terrified the whole time. In fact, he'd gone to the extent of killing all her babies, never knowing which one is the 8th. Hey, I never know, right? So now they came and told him that the 8th child of Devaki had been born. Kansu had awaited this news very anxiously, immediately got up from bed thinking, here is Kala, the supreme time factor, which has taken birth to kill me. Thus overwhelmed, his hair scattered on his head. He had just woken up. Kans approached the place where the child had been born. Devaki, the mother, helplessly, piteously pleaded and appealed to Kans. Kans was her brother. She said, my dear brother, don't kill this girl. She will be your daughter-in-law one day. It is unworthy of you to kill a woman and a baby and a girl at that. My dear brother, by the influence of destiny, you have already killed many babies, each of them as bright and beautiful as fire. But kindly spare this daughter. Give her to me as your gift. I mean, Kans had no fear of a girl trying to kill him. He was like, come on. He was a very, very powerful king. Nobody could kill him. And just that there was this prediction, right? Devaki said, my brother, I am very poor, being bereft of all my children, but still I am your younger sister. Therefore it would be worthy of you to give me this last child as a gift. Piteously embracing her daughter and crying, Devaki begged Kans, the king, for the child. But he was so cruel that he chastised her and forcibly snatched the baby girl from her hands. Kans, who was kneeling, grasped the newborn baby by the legs and tried to dash her against the surface of a stone. The child, Yogamaya Devi, the younger sister of Vishnu, slipped upward from his hands and appeared in the sky as Devi, the goddess Durga, with 8 arms, completely equipped with weapons. She was decorated with flower garlands, smeared with sandalwood pulp, and dressed with excellent garments and ornaments made of valuable jewels, holding in her hand a conch shell, a bow, a trident, arrows, a shield, a sword, a disc, and a club. She spoke as follows. "O Kans, you fool! What will be the use of killing me? The Supreme Godhead, who has been your enemy from the very beginning, has already taken his birth somewhere else. He will certainly kill you. Therefore, do not unnecessarily kill any more children." After speaking to Kans in this way, the goddess Durga appeared in different places, such as Varanasi, and became celebrated by different names as Annapurna, Durga, Kali, and Bhadra. So this is actually how goddess Durga came into this world, and I think it's time to show you some pictures here. So that's Yogamaya coming as when he smashed the little girl onto the ground. The girl, well, instead of hitting the ground, rose up into the sky and appeared as goddess Durga, showed her real form. Once again, you see here. Now, Durga is talked about here as the younger sister of Krishna. This is how she is typically, traditionally shown, riding a lion. She's fierce, she's a goddess. Nobody dare mess with her. But most people don't know about Durga. They don't know that she is Krishna's spiritual potency, Yogamaya. And originally she is Parvati, the partner, the beloved, the wife of Shiva. She takes the form of Durga only to protect her devotees, only to protect them from those harmful beings and asuras or demons who try to harm them. Otherwise, she's Parvati. And sometimes she even takes the form of Kali. A lot of people in the West have become very enamored with Kali, thinking of her as a goddess who is a warrior. But actually, she just takes that form to kill the asuras, the demons, the demonic beings. You can see her here with all their heads chopped off. She's wearing them like a skull, like skulls around her neck. She never does this to her loved ones. And this is not her normal form. This is just a protective form. This is the form she takes when someone is threatening her loved ones. So we need to understand things as they are. A lot of people don't study these things and just, I'm into Kali or I'm into Durga or I'm into whatever. Please understand for yourself. After hearing the words of goddess Durga, Kans was struck with wonder. Thus he approached his sister Devaki and brother-in-law Vasudeva, and now he was very humbled. You see, he very humbly spoke as follows. "Alas, my sister, alas, my brother-in-law, I am indeed so sinful that exactly like a Rakshasa or a man-eater who eats his own child, I have killed so many sons born of you. Being merciless and cruel, I have forsaken all my relatives and friends. Alas, not only human beings, but sometimes even providence lies. And I am so sinful that I believed the omen of providence and killed so many of my sister's children." So he's finally having some regret. This guy who would stop at nothing, kill anyone, anything, doesn't matter. His sister's own kids, kill them. Doesn't matter. All of them. And now he's having a moment of remorse. Won't last long, but it's just a moment, yeah. In this world, we can see, now he becomes a little philosophical. It's philosophy can sometimes be a nice way to hide our emotions, our shame, our guilt, our fear. So he says, in this world, we can see that pots and other products of earth appear, then break, and then disappear, mixing with the earth. Similarly, the bodies of all conditioned entities, living entities, are annihilated at death. But the soul, like the earth itself, is unchanging and never annihilated. Very true. We were saying this earlier, right? My dear sister Devaki, everyone suffers and enjoys the results of their own karma. Therefore, although your sons have unfortunately been killed by me, please do not lament for them. What crazy logic is this? He's killed them and he says, don't lament for them because this is their karma. Kants then begged, my dear sister and brother-in-law, please be merciful to such a poor-hearted person as me, since both of you are saintly persons. Please excuse my atrocities. He then fell at their feet, his eyes full of tears of regret. Fully believing in the words of the goddess Durga, Kants exhibited affection for Devaki and Vasudeva, immediately releasing them from their iron shackles. When Devaki and Vasudeva saw Kants actually repentant, they were relieved of all anger. Vasudeva spoke to Kants as follows. So this is the father of Krishna. He spoke to Kants as follows. He says, "O great personality, Kants, what you have said about this philosophy is correct. Persons in the bodily concept of life, lacking self-realization, differentiate in terms of this is mine and this is yours. Thus they suffer from lamentation, jubilation, fear, envy, greed, illusion, and madness. They are influenced by the immediate cause, which they are busy counteracting because they have no knowledge of this remote supreme cause of the personality of Godhead." So he's really pointing out that, what causes the greatest suffering for all of us is that we think that this is mine. And then when we think something is mine, then we suffer. Or we're envious of someone who has something that we would like to have. And then again we suffer because now we want to have that. It could be an object, it could be a person that you're envious of, that they have, right? Or the life that they have, or the youth or the beauty that they have. So they are busy counteracting all these forces because they have no knowledge of the remote cause, the personality of Godhead. They do not know that behind it all is actually God. Devaki and Vasudeva were appeased and Kants returned to his home. After that night passed, Kants summoned his ministers and informed them of all that had been spoken by Yogamaya. After hearing their master's statement, they advised him as follows. If this is so, O king, beginning today we shall kill all the children born in all the villages, towns, and pasturing grounds within the past 10 days or more. Does this sound familiar to you? Didn't Herod do something similar when Christ was born? Let me know. Maybe you know more about it than I do. But yeah, all his ministers proposed that they kill all the children born in all the villages, towns in the past 10 days. And then they started to reassure his ego. The demigods are powerless in front of you. Vishnu is in seclusion in the core of the hearts of the yogis. So Vishnu is in hiding. He's in the heart of the yogis. Shiva has gone to the forest to meditate. And Brahma is always engaged in austerities and meditation. Therefore, you have nothing to fear. Nonetheless, because of their enmity, our opinion is that the demigods should not be neglected. Therefore, to uproot them completely, engage us in fighting with them, for we are ready to follow you. Now, what method did they have for fighting against the devas or the demigods? They come up with an interesting remedy. They say, as a disease, if initially neglected, becomes acute and impossible to cure, or as the senses, if not controlled at first, are impossible to control later, an enemy, if neglected in the beginning, later becomes insurmountable. The foundation of all the devas, the demigods, is Vishnu, who is worshipped wherever there is dharma, the Vedas, cows, Brahmins, austerities, and sacrifice. O king, we shall therefore kill all the Vedic Brahmins. The Brahmins are the priests, the upholders of the Vedic knowledge, the ones who help everybody on the spiritual path. So we shall kill all of them, and the cows that supply milk from which ghee is obtained for the sacrifice. Vishnu is the ultimate enemy of the asuras. The asuras are the demons. He is the leader of all the demigods. Because of them, all of them exist under his protection. The great saintly persons, sages, and Vaishnavas all depend upon him. To persecute them is the only way to kill Vishnu. Having considered the instructions of his ministers, Kans, who was devoid of good intelligence, decided to persecute the saintly persons as the only way to achieve his own good fortune. Think about the kind of person that does this. One minute he was apologizing, and now the next morning he is talking to his ministers, and they're advising killing all the babies, and they're advising killing all the Brahmins, the priests, and they're advising killing all the people who are saintly. And he's agreeing. Oh yeah. Why? Because he wants to be safe. Because he fears his own death. Now, what would you do in this situation? Would you go out and kill everyone you could, just because they might come and kill you? What would you do? It's a big question for us to ponder. The followers of Kans were expert at persecuting others. Expert at persecuting others. Do you know of people like that in today's time? And they could assume any form they desired. So we're going to see this now in the next few episodes. You're going to see them assuming various other forms and coming to persecute all the children and kill them, including Krishna. After giving these demons permission to go everywhere and persecute the saintly persons, Kans entered his palace. The asuras then began the persecution of saintly persons and the killing of all the children. When one persecutes great souls, all his benedictions of longevity, beauty, fame, dharma, blessings, and promotion to higher planets will be destroyed. With that, we come to the end of this chapter, the birth of Krishna. And I wonder if any of you have any questions. I would love to hear what your thoughts are. Maybe you're wondering, how is this possible? Maybe some of it sounds too far out or mystical. Whatever it is, feel free to write it down. If you're on live right now on Instagram, or if you're there on Zoom, I'm here to answer any of your questions. If you're not able to think of anything right now, all of these episodes are being recorded and are on YouTube. And you can hear the entire Bhagavatam. We're getting close to 80 episodes now. And they're all there. And you'll be able to hear at your own pace. And at those, if you can write down comments, if you can like and share with others, that would be great. But yeah, if you got any questions right now, I'm here. We can discuss. That's the advantage of being with the live program. We're here every Tuesday at 7 p.m. Pacific time, 10 p.m. Eastern time, and on Wednesdays at 7:30 a.m. India time. So if you're in India, then it's 7:30 a.m. for you these days. It'll change again as daylight saving time changes. But for now, 7:30 a.m. in India on Wednesdays. And for those of you in the U.S., in this part of the world, then it's on Tuesdays, 7 p.m. Pacific time and 10 p.m. Eastern time. All right, doesn't look like we have any questions, so we'll end it over here. Thank you for being there. Thank you so much. I am blessed to have your presence. Very grateful to all of you for being here. Jai Shri Krishna, Hare Krishna, Radhe Radhe. Thank you.